7 shots echo in the Delta. A Mississippi town mourns and searches for meaning. Welcome to Behind the Crime, where true crime meets real life. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Let's uncover the truth, one case at a time. Now let's see today's story. When gunfire erupted after a homecoming football game in Leland, Mississippi, a small Delta town was left shattered. As families grieve 7 lost lives, the community wrestles with grief, fear, and the question that haunts so many American towns. How did celebration turn to tragedy? It began like hundreds of Friday nights across the South. On October 11, 2025, the air over Leland carried the sounds of drums, cheers, and brass. Homecoming weekend for the Leland High School kids. Parents parked pickup trucks along Main Street, teens posed for photos, and vendors sold barbecue under strings of yellow lights. The Delta night was warm, sticky with late-season humidity. Shortly before 10 p.m., the crowd began to spill into downtown, where an informal after-party was gathering. Music thumped from car speakers. Children darted between clusters of adults. It was the kind of community ritual that stitched together a town of fewer than 4,000 people. Then, the rhythm changed. A burst of popping sounds, first mistaken for fireworks, cut through the bass line. Screams followed. Within seconds, chaos swallowed Main Street. Police would later confirm what witnesses already knew. Multiple shooters opened fire in a crowd of residents celebrating homecoming. When it was over, people lay dead on the pavement. More than a dozen were wounded, and the shock that rippled through the Mississippi Delta was only beginning. Leland sits on the western edge of the state, a few miles from the levee that holds back the Mississippi River. It's the kind of place where everyone recognizes everyone else's truck, where gospel and blues have always shared the same soil. The Delta's beauty is quiet, flat fields of cotton and soybeans stretching toward the horizon. But so is its hardship. Decades of economic decline have hollowed out once bustling main streets across the region. Leland's population has fallen steadily since the 1980s, following factory closures and the migration of young people to Jackson or Memphis. Median income hovers well below the national average. Opportunity, many residents say, feels scarce. Yet the town's spirit endures in its sense of closeness. Friday night football is more than sport, it's communion. Homecoming weekend, especially, offers a glimpse of the Leland that residents fight to preserve. Proud, joyful, and connected, that's what made the violence so bewildering. "This is not who we are," the mayor told reporters the next day. But the truth, difficult and familiar, is that no American community is immune. As the first shots rang out, the crowd scattered in every direction. Witnesses described people diving behind cars, others running toward the school for cover. Some helped the injured, while others called relatives to make sure they were alive. Paramedics from nearby Greenville rushed to assist. Police blocked off downtown streets and urged residents to shelter in place. The flashing red and blue lights reflected off storefront windows, painting the bricks in urgent color. Ebanee mourning. Investigators from multiple agencies were combing the scene. Dozens of shell casings marked where shooters had stood. The smell of gunpowder had already faded, but the evidence of what happened lingered. Overturned chairs, dropped phones, streaks of blood on the sidewalk point for victims were pronounced dead that night. Over the next several days, 3 more would succumb to their injuries. The 7th, 25-year-old Ebanee Williams, died a week later in a Jackson hospital. Her passing deepened the grief and cemented the event as one of the deadliest mass shootings in Mississippi in recent years. Ebanee Williams was known among friends for her quick laugh and her love of gospel music. She worked at a nearby healthcare facility and had come home for homecoming weekend to see family. When the coroner in Hinds County confirmed her death, residents gathered for a vigil outside City Hall, lighting candles and praying for the 7 lives lost. The victims span generations: students, young adults, parents. In small towns like Leland, every loss ripples outward. Nearly everyone knew someone connected to the victims. Churches held joint services, and local businesses set donation jars on counters to help families with funeral costs. Grief in a place this small becomes communal. As one pastor told the local paper, "When one family loses a child, we all lose a child." Within days, the Federal Bureau of Investigation joined local and state authorities. The Bureau's Jackson field office released images of several individuals sought for questioning. By mid-October, at least 9 people had been arrested, several charged with capital murder. Investigators said early evidence suggested the violence began with a disagreement among several individuals. Though they stopped short of identifying a specific motive, the arrests brought little comfort. Residents wanted to know how a personal dispute could escalate into a barrage of gunfire that left 7 people dead and more than a dozen injured. Law enforcement officials have not said how many guns were used or whether all the suspects fired weapons. The Leland investigation now forms part of a larger national conversation about how quickly disagreements, particularly among young men, can turn deadly when firearms are easily accessible. Mississippi consistently ranks among the states with the highest gun death rates in the country. According to CDC data, rural counties, despite their tight-knit communities, are not immune to the contagion of violence spreading through American life. After the shooting, classes were canceled at Leland High School. Counselors arrived from neighboring districts. At the football field, someone had placed 7 white crosses along the fence, each bearing a name written in black marker. Funeral processions moved slowly through the narrow streets over the following week. Residents stood on porches in silence as hearses passed. At night, the sound of music drifted from church services, the hymns carrying both lament and resolve. City leaders promised to increase community policing and youth outreach programs, though funding for such efforts has long been uncertain. The mayor called on residents to turn this pain into purpose. For families, healing will take longer. "We're just trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense," said a relative of one victim in a brief local TV interview. You don't expect this to happen at homecoming. To outsiders, the Mississippi Delta is often painted in extremes, either as the cradle of American blues or as a region defined by poverty. Both stories are true, but incomplete. What binds the region is resilience. The Delta has endured floods, segregation, and the slow grind of economic isolation. Its people have learned to rebuild again and again. Gun violence adds another burden. According to Gun Violence Archive data, Mississippi's rate of firearm homicides has more than doubled since 2013. Many shootings occur in small towns, rarely drawing national headlines. Community leaders cite a web of causes: easy access to guns, generational poverty, limited mental health services, and a lack of after-school programs for youth. Experts who study the Delta emphasize that violence cannot be separated from context. When opportunity dries up, despair fills the void, says one criminologist at Mississippi State University. Communities like Leland are not violent by nature. They're neglected. The Leland shooting forced a reckoning not just with tragedy, but with infrastructure. Residents have begun holding public meetings about curfews, mentorship, and local investment. Churches that once competed for Sunday attendance are now partnering on youth events. In the Delta, progress often begins where heartbreak leaves no other choice. A week after Ebanee Williams' death, Main Street looked almost ordinary again. The police tape was gone, and children rode bicycles past the boarded-up storefront where the shooting began. But behind the normalcy lies an undercurrent of unease. People notice unfamiliar cars now. Parents double-check that doors are locked before bedtime. Still, signs of solidarity persist. A mural project honoring the 7 victims is planned near City Hall. Local artists say it will feature scenes of the river and the fields, symbols of continuity more than loss. We want to remember them in a way that shows life goes on, one organizer said at a planning meeting. As the criminal cases move forward, the community's attention shifts to what healing might look like. For Leland, that means confronting the same hard truths facing towns across America. How to balance faith in neighbors with fear of what might come next. How to celebrate young lives while acknowledging the fragility of safety. How to keep gathering on Friday nights without wondering what might happen if an argument turns violent. When the Delta sun sets, it stains the sky a deep, bruised orange. From a distance, the landscape looks serene, but every resident knows that serenity can be fleeting. They also know something more enduring, that grief can bind a town as powerfully as joy once did. For now, Leland carries on. Thank you for staying through to the end, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and also feel free to comment and make a suggestion about anything or any story of your interest.